Well, now today is the first day that candidates can file nomination papers to run for mayor, councillor, or school board trustee. My next guests are about to do just that for the first time. Kevin Rupasinghe is registering to run for city council in Scarborough Southwest, and Jamaal Myers wants to run for city council in the neighboring ward, Scarborough North. Good morning to both of you.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
Now, Kevin, we'll start with you. You have your appointment to submit your nomination papers in, around 15 minutes? How does it feel to throw your hat in the ring?
It's incredible. I'm feeling quite excited. There's quite a buzz at City Hall right now. This has been something my team and I have been working towards for the better part of a year. I'm here at City Hall right now, getting ready to register as a city council candidate.
When there's like a year of building towards something like this, I wonder if you're feeling nervous at all. I mean, you're actually at City Hall already, right?
Yeah. Feeling less nervous than I thought I would, honestly. I've actually been quite encouraged. I knew that when I announced my intention to run, people are tired. It's been a rough couple of years. There's a lot going on in the world, but I was blown away by the positivity, the optimism that people had, and the commitment they had to this campaign. And so I'm actually really excited and quite eager to get started fighting for the future of Scarborough.
Now, Jamaal, you are heading in later today to submit your paperwork. What is it that inspired you to run for city council?
What inspired me to run was my grandmother, Lydia Griffiths.
Okay.
My grandmother and I lived together for 4 years before she passed away. And when we first started living together, one day I was taking her to the doctor in Malvern, and we had to cross Nielsen Road to get to a bus stop. And as we were about to cross the bus to get to the bus, she held me back and said she couldn't cross because there was no crosswalk. So we were forced to walk 100 meters down the road to use a crosswalk there. Now, my grandmother has lived in her house since 1969, and I thought it was just outrageous that she couldn't use the bus stop right next to her house because it was unsafe for seniors. That experience opened my eyes to just how differently we experience our city from one another, and why it's so important that we have people with diverse lived experiences at the decision-making table to ensure these experiences are represented in our decision-making.
Does that experience with your grandmother kind of shape or inform what your intentions would be as a councillor, as far as the issues you want to take on?
Absolutely. Whenever I look at an issue, the first thing I think of is, how would this affect my grandmother? How would it affect my grandmother to not have the bus run on a regular schedule? How would it affect my grandmother to not have a crosswalk for the bus stop? How would it affect my grandmother if she didn't have a safe place to call home? And, with that sort of eyesight, it makes the decision-making very clear.
Now, Kevin, you are also from Scarborough. You'd mentioned a year building towards this point to throw your hat in the ring, and also that we've been through just over 2 very tough years. How much does that have to do with you wanting to run?
Well, I think for me, it's been something that I've been paying attention to even before the pandemic. Okay. For me, I'm a child of immigrants. I went through the same thing that a lot of newcomers experience growing up in the suburbs. My folks, they wanted to encourage me to stay in school and get a good job and have a better life here in Canada. And so that's how I got started in engineering at first as my career. But over time, I started to see that it wasn't just hard infrastructure. It was a lot of social infrastructure. I started paying attention to the invisible systems and policies that were keeping the status quo and keeping people in power. And this is where I started to notice that, well, these are how we're keeping, my neighbors getting injured and killed on our streets, right? Or my friends that can't afford to stay in the city that they love, or knowing that that's going to be how my children end up experiencing the worsening impacts of the climate crisis. And so over time, I started to advocate, I started to speak out, then I started to organize and connect with community members, and bring people together and actually see what it takes to transform the city. So we've had the opportunity to transform streets all across the city. I've had the chance to connect with neighbors on new developments, and I've started to realize that really the place to have the most influence is during your elections. Because what we need for all of these issues and more is a council that better looks like and understands the priorities of and the experiences of the diverse people of the city. Mm-hmm. And I realized that some point, I'd have to step up and fight for my community and for the future of the city.
What are the biggest challenges you run into trying to get into that position?
Well, I think there's two. So one is that comes to mind is, of course, the ward size has doubled. After council got cut in half, it's a lot of doors. It's twice the number of doors you got to go knock on, and twice the number of people you got to meet. But my team and I are prepared for the challenge, and we're eager to get into it. I think the other is that I don't look like your typical councillor. I know there are going to be people who criticize me for my age or for the color of my skin, and so what? Right? In fact, I think we need a council that does look like the people of the city and understands those experiences and shares those priorities. And so I'm ready to fight for the future of Scarborough.
Jamaal, do any of those experiences from Kevin ring true for you as well?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, not looking like a stereotypical candidate is hard. But, it also comes with its own benefits because you bring a set of experiences, ideas that other candidates running in Scarborough just don't have. For example, I keep hearing at the door the housing crisis. It's not so much how it's affecting the people who live in the houses. What they're worried about is, are my kids going to ever be able to afford to live in this city? That kind of issue, it's talked about at council, but it doesn't really resonate because for a lot of councillors, they just don't have those problems. Their kids are fine. They're not worrying about how their kids are going to be able to afford to live in the city or if their kids can get jobs, that are going to help to support them in such an expensive city. So it's just really, I would say, an advantage to be running with the type of experience, with the type of background that is not the stereotypical background of a typical Toronto councillor, and really just using it and leaning into it to create that connection with voters, and that people really do respond positively, like Kevin said. People are hungry for an inclusive and authentic vision of what our city could be and of creating a city that works for all of us.
How prepared are you for the next 6 months of campaigning?
I'm very prepared. I have, first of all, a phenomenal team. My team is smart. They are hardworking. And the best part about it is they all work so well together as a team. Number two, it's just the outpouring of support, whether it's from my colleagues at TD Bank, whether it's from my friends, my family, and most importantly, from the community. I've done some canvassing already just to sort of get my feet wet. And, you never know how people are going to respond when you're knocking on their door for the first time, especially, while we're still in a pandemic. And people are just so excited to see a candidate talking about the issues that they care about, a candidate with the experiences they have, and a candidate that looks like them. So, yeah, I'm very excited for these next 6 months.
And Kevin, I got about 20 seconds left here. How prepared are you for this campaign time over the next 6 months?
Feeling great. I've got an amazing team. We've got a great plan. I'm committed to doing this for the next 6 months, and I know my community supports behind us. And these are going to be some of the most critical elections, critical races, these campaigns in Toronto's inner suburbs, because it's not all just the flashy mayoral race. It comes down to your council, and what happens in Toronto matters. So anyone thinking about volunteering or donating, feel free to get in touch with either of us.
Kevin and Jamaal, thanks so much for joining me this morning.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Kevin Rupasinghe is registering to run for City Council in Scarborough Southwest. Jamaal Myers is going to run for City Council in the neighboring ward, Scarborough North. 8:21 right now. Jennifer Allen's back with a look at traffic.